Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the Honda Monkey, part of Honda's MiniMoto line, and a lineup that I really didn't understand until I started looking at this, and now I'm obsessed with it. So on this channel, we are going to review the entire MiniMoto line, everything that we can get our hands on, because I'm filming here at Riverview Honda, and they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So if there's a Honda motorcycle or Honda Power Sport or anything Honda that you're interested in, even Honda vehicles, I will be covering it here on this channel. So if you want to, if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you hit the like and subscribe. But if you really want to help out my channel, just watch this till the end. That's what really helps me. So let's put this in its class. Let's talk about it. Let's go through it spec by spec, and let's try to show you some things that the other videos aren't showing you right now. So when we talk about Honda's MiniMoto line, it was really just started by the Grom. The Grom had some unusual success for Honda, started taking off, and there's all kinds of like owners groups and all kinds of things, all kinds of mods. Everything just exploded from the Grom. They brought out the Trail 125 here in Canada. They brought out other models that are similar to the Trail 125, many of them sharing the same engine as this one, and everything started expanding. Now there are differences. Something like the Trail 125 has a different style transmission than this. It's a clutchless transmission. We'll talk about that when we get to that bike, but this one is modeled very much after the Grom. So think of the Grom as the sport bike version of this bike and this as the adventure bike version. Now, what kind of adventures can you have? Well, that's part of the fun of this bike. So we're going to talk about all of that. The one thing I was concerned about though was, is a bike like this going to fit me? I'm about 6 feet tall, and I was surprised. So let's get that out of the way first, and then we'll go over spec by spec on this bike. So the Monkey does a little bit of magic. It's obviously very short wheelbase, it's a very small bike, but when you sit on it, the seat height is actually fairly comfortable. Yes, it's low, but it's not that low. I'm about 6 feet tall, and I've sat on plenty of bikes that have around the same height here. You can always check spec sheets, and spec sheets will tell you that this is 31 and whatever inches or something like that. But the point is, it's hard to tell from a spec sheet which bike is going to fit you better, simply because the width of the seat and all of that kind of plays into how it's going to fit. This one has a nice wide seat, so it actually feels probably taller than it could be compared to some bikes that try to really narrow it out at the front end. What that wide seat does for you is it makes it very comfortable. So again, if I don't look like I'm super stretched out and comfortable like I would be on a true adventure bike or something like that, I'm not. But you know what? It's not uncomfortable for me. And what I like about the seat is I can move around front to back. I should mention the seat just moved about a half an inch there. I've got the seat bolts out here because I was working on getting the battery connected up so we can film the dash, and I just left them out. So don't think that's Honda's quality issue. It's secure. But I will say I can move around forward and back. It's a very comfortable ride, and I would totally enjoy riding this. Now, is this a competitor to a scooter? I don't think so. With its manual transmission, it's now a 5-speed manual transmission. Some of the earlier Groms were 4-speed, so you got a 5-speed on this Monkey, and that makes it exactly like a regular motorcycle. They talk about the clutch lever being exactly a mechanical clutch, all that stuff. There are a few modern features on this retro-styled bike, and we're going to start by showing you the front wheel, working our way back through, and talk about what's modern, what's not, and what works, and maybe what doesn't for you. So I always say, if you've seen my videos before, you know I love to start at the front wheel because it tells you what the manufacturer's intent of this bike is. And this one is interesting to me because you know you've got extra small wheels. These are 12-inch wheels. So a traditional sport bike or something would have a 17-inch wheel. Adventure bikes go 19 to 21-inch wheels. So these are very small. We know that, you know that. What's surprising though is they look very wide, but they're 120 width. That's about the same as the typical sport bike. So they're not terribly wide, which still leaves you with the ability to get some efficiency out of them. But of course, these are more off-road style. They have tread right up to the side, so if you get into slippery conditions or muddy conditions, you're going to have a little bit of tread in there. Are these the best tires for that? Who knows? But they're good for road, and they can certainly go down gravel roads, bumpy roads, all that kind of stuff. Now you can also see that the manufacturer did intend for you to leave the road because of the placement of the fender. Yes, this is a style thing. It is a sort of metal fender, but the spacing of it between the wheel means that you're not going to get mud buildup on the tire and actually lock the front wheel up. Some road bikes with dirt bike tires, as soon as you take them in the mud accumulates and it gets kind of stiff in there. The suspension doesn't work with the fender there, and the mud can kind of get stuck. So you've got the ability to go off-road, get through the mud, do that kind of thing. Now what's also interesting is you have ABS here, which I think is super good. If you're a newer rider, that's important, but it is only front wheel ABS. I think that's a good thing for an off-road bike like this. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But front wheel ABS on a bike that's going to go into the slippery stuff, maybe into some muddy areas, and then come back on the road, just to have that little bit extra security is good. And also, of course, if you head out in the wet, it's going to give you a little bit of extra ability there. It does have upside down forks. Now, upside down forks are traditionally something you only see on higher end bikes. This is obviously not a very expensive bike, but the upside down forks here, I think were done for a reason. They give you a little extra stiffness up top. I think Honda knows that people are gonna kind of abuse this bike, so they overbuilt it in my opinion. Solid brakes here, upside down forks. You've got an interesting package to start. So with any motorcycle we look at, we have to look at the engine. That's the heart of the bike, and Honda lists the horsepower for this as 9 point something. I think it's 9.7, some of them are 9.2 in that range. When you have to list the percentage point of the power, you know you don't have a lot. But this bike I've seen on YouTube will go over 100 kilometers an hour for some people. I think realistically it's gonna go over 80 kilometers an hour, no problem. 80 kilometer an hour roads, 50 mile an hour roads, not a problem. Once you start getting into 90 speed limits and 100 and something speed limits, although it may make it up to that depending on your weight, conditions, everything else, that's probably not where you want to take this bike. What I love about this though is this is a single cylinder Honda. Now a lot of the engines in like dirt bikes and the parallel twins are angled up here. This is angled way down, which means it's going to keep the weight down low. Surprisingly, there is some engineering in this. I don't think it's just laid out like this for cooling or other reasons. I think it's also about weight distribution. So you keep the weight on this bike low, and these smaller wheels that we just talked about, it's going to help with handling. If you think about an adventure bike with a 21-inch wheel, it's not something you would want on a sport tour. So they shrink it down to a 17-inch wheel. That's what you get on sport tours. Shrink it down again, and at the lower speeds, this bike is going to feel very, very nimble in city streets, country roads, that kind of thing. But again, that ability to go off-road. So the air-cooled engine, super simple. Single spark plug there. Interesting, the exhaust comes out here, goes around, loops back, and then comes up to the higher mount. We'll talk about that in just a second here. One thing I like, they have a little steel mount there in front of the pieces there, just to keep everything protected. So you've got no, it's not like it's got a skid plate or anything like that, but you've got the ability to keep certain things protected from stone shooting up. That's again part of Honda's reliability. So what I love about air-cooled Honda engines is they're super simple. And my very first bike was an air-cooled Honda engine. It was a 234cc twin, but I ran that thing basically at full throttle all the time. I did a 7-hour trip all on full throttle, then came back full throttle 7 hours again. You can run these things and run them all day long. Simple maintenance, do your oil change, spark plugs, lube the chain, simple stuff. It's a lot of fun, and this one on the Monkey actually sounds kind of cooler than some of the other MiniMotos from Honda. So taking a look at the back end here, again, a couple little unique things. Of course, you've got that retro styling with the raised up exhaust and the shield on there. It just looks super cool. It also, like I said, sounds pretty cool. Then you got a few different things down here. So you've got your swing arm here, it's obviously on both sides. You also have the shocks on both sides. The Grom has a single swing arm in the middle. On this one, for styling purposes, they've got two shocks, one on either side. So you've got a little different style shocks. Disc brake at the back as well, so you've got quality brakes. And don't go out and buy yourself a pair of tires the same size as the front. This is a 130 width tire, and the front was 120, so a little bit wider rear tire as well to handle all that power of single-digit horsepower. But again, a little bit different, so just something to know. Now, I want to take a look at one little detail, and it just sort of tells the story of this bike, and it's a simple little thing. So let's just zoom in for 1 second. So we're wide angle view, kind of skews the view of everything here. I want to zoom in just because I think it matters. See that L-shaped inflator area there? This allows you to actually inflate these tiny little tires. I wish they had these on some of my motorcycles. I've got large disc brakes on the front of my bike, and it's impossible to check the tire pressure, to lower the tire pressure, raise the tire pressure, whatever you would want to do on a bike like this. But this makes it easy, and that's kind of what Honda did. It's not purely a styling exercise on this bike. There's a lot of little details in this bike that really make sense for what it is. The tank of this bike is another area I really want to show off sort of how Honda thinks of this. So at the top here, you don't have a retro style cap there. You have the fully modern style tank cap that sort of folds back, but they go the extra mile and put on the retro style logo there. So that's the, let's just zoom right into it. See the HM logo, Honda Motorcycles logo with the wing. So kind of a cool sort of flashback look, but again, modern. And that's really what this bike is. It's both modern and it's retro. Taking a look at the seat here, I do want to point that out. The plaid seat on this model looks absolutely awesome, but again, it's also very comfortable, and Honda's not shy about saying, hey, the wheels, the thicker wheels there, they're going to give you some extra suspension. The suspension, of course, is going to do its job, but the seat is also part of the suspension and the comfort. So they went all out because they knew, hey, not a ton of suspension travel, you've got those little tiny wheels, but they're going to make sure they can do everything you can to keep you comfortable, and this bike is pretty comfortable. All right, let's take a look at the dash and look at some more modern retro stuff. So zooming right into the dash here, you can see you've got sort of modern retro. So right away there's a screen inside there instead of a dial. You've got sort of the chrome style dial. So it does look retro from the outside, but to the rider you have something that's relatively modern. Now they didn't go all out and give you a full TFT, and I will say right now that I can see the display clearer than you can see the display, but the one fault I would give it is it's not as readable as it could be. Now, I don't know that that's gonna matter. Basically, you're gonna drive your speed on this. You're not gonna get speeding tickets no matter where you are. So you're gonna keep an eye on what's going on. There is a little select button down here. So you have kilometers, you have trip A, you actually have trip B as well, and then back to kilometers. The top is a fuel gauge. The center is just your speedometer. There is no tachometer, which is interesting because the Grom has a tachometer and a gear shift or a gear indicator. This does not have that. So a little bit of a step down from features from the Grom, but again, fully retro. Does it matter? I don't know that it does. I learned to ride a 5-speed Honda motorcycle without a gear indicator, and it was just fine. And again, when it doesn't have a lot of gears, you know which gear is the right gear. When it's, when it doesn't have a lot of power, you know which gear is the right gear. So again, it's probably gonna teach you how to ride a motorcycle well without some of those things, but you're totally fine with what you've got here. You do have some indicator lights on the bottom, which are nice and clear. When you throw the signals on, it is a single signal light to determine left signal or right signal. So I just had the right and the left signal on, but that's kind of what Honda used to do. So again, it's that retro feel overall. Taking a quick look at the controls here, slipper and assist clutch does not exist on this bike, but I swear it's as light as anything else in the Honda lineup, if not lighter. Again, small little engine, small little systems and pieces. Clutch is very light. You do have modern Honda controls here. So these are a big headlight switch there, no trigger or anything there. You've got the horn there and the signals down there. The other side is a start switch and a kill switch. Again, typical modern stuff, typical switch gear for Hondas, nothing fancy there. And again, a normal spread. Like again, the handlebars may look small to some people, they're not. Everything fits normal. Same with the spacing between the shifter and the brake pedal down at the very bottom here. We'll kind of take a quick look. All of that spacing is normal motorcycle stuff, so you actually can ride this and feel exactly like a full-size motorcycle, even though it's not. We should point out lighting on this bike. Let's take a quick look at the front. So taking a look at the front of the bike, you can sort of see that sort of semi-halo on the either side there when the bike is on. If the bike was running, the actual headlight would be on. We'll try to get that high beam up for you. Does it come up? It does not. So it doesn't come up, but you do have the retro style look, but the modern style halo, high and low beam in there. What's different though is your signal lights are the old incandescent, which I think work really well on this. It has a clicking to it even when you're riding, so I don't know if you can hear that. But again, all retro Honda look, while still having the modern safety of a modern headlight, and you also have the LED taillight, but the regular incandescent signal lights on the rear. So let's talk about who this bike is for, and this is one of those perfect bikes where I always tell people you can't buy a motorcycle just based on specs, and this happens to me all the time. I review the latest and greatest bike and people say this one's better because it has this feature or that, like quick shifter or cruise control or all these kinds of more modern features, or it has a better TFT dash. And the reality is that having fun on a motorcycle has nothing to do with a spec sheet. It's how you feel about it, how you want to use it, and what it does for you. And one of the most fun bikes I've ever had was a small displacement Honda that I did everything on. My first bike was a scooter. Scooters, not so fun, kind of, you know, twist and go, take some of the joy of riding out of it, but very practical, and it gave me my freedom. I moved on to a low displacement motorcycle, and that's where this comes in. If you're a new rider, you can actually learn to ride on this thing so easily. It's gonna make you a great little rider because you've got, you know, everything's just easy. It's got a sharp turning circle, it's a narrow, or it's a short wheelbase, so it's gonna be easy to turn. You can get your feet down. If you drop it, you can just pick it up because it's super lightweight. And again, some people complain, oh, it's heavier than it could be for this kind of thing. Yeah, but part of that weight goes into the style. So it's a super great beginner bike. But what's cool about it is, are you going to want to have something faster? You probably will. Now, if you can afford it, you can keep this thing around. This is the kind of thing that a lot of people are gonna want as a secondary bike. I would love to have this to whip around town and have my other bike for doing everything else. But this is fun because one of the things you can do on the Monkey is you can go absolutely anywhere you want. Wander around your little neighborhood, no problem. Wander out into the country roads, no problem. Go small town to small town, do a day tour and just take a little lunch bag. You can get a little rack on the back and put some stuff on there. Take your lunch with you, do that. All of that you can do, but find that little dirt road, find that little trail, you know. This isn't gonna be something you can take on aggressive trails, but a smooth trail, a dirt road, this thing's gonna be absolutely perfect for. And because it's got that 5-speed transmission, you're gonna learn to ride, you're gonna get the feeling, and you're gonna have a blast on it. And that's what makes this special. To me, the Grom, although it gives you a sporty around town bike, doesn't make as much sense to me. This thing is something that no matter who you are in the motorcycling world, it's gonna look cool when you see it parked outside a cafe or down a little dirt trail or a little dirt road or that kind of thing, hanging out near the cottage or campsite, whatever you want, putting this on the back of an RV into a toy hauler and having something small. And the other thing is it's super, super, super efficient. That's one of the really strengths of this Moto line is the fuel efficiency. It's absolutely incredible. So it's very cheap to insure, pretty cheap to buy, and definitely cheap to fuel. It makes getting around town, heading from small town to small town, way more fun, and that's what motorcycling is all about. So the MiniMoto line, like I said, I thought it wouldn't fit me. Not only does it fit me as far as the size-wise, it fits me as far as the personality of riding. If you want to fall in love with motorcycling, get something that looks pretty cool, that can do things, and that isn't perfect. It's not a spec sheet king. The imperfection of this is what makes it so enjoyable, and that's what motorcycling is all about. If you wanted a perfect ride from somewhere, you get in a car and you do your thing. If you want some imperfection, that's where motorcycles shine. Imperfection in this is what makes it great. So we'll have the whole Moto line here, the MiniMoto line filmed here. So if you have an interest in that, make sure you let me know. If you made it this far in the video, leave a like, feel free to leave a comment. If you have experience with these things, let me know. Tell me all the fun stuff you've done with it. I know there's a whole bunch of videos online of people doing crazy tours and other kind of stuff, modifying them up. Let us know the kind of fun you're having with it, and we'll talk to you in the next one.